Hello, and welcome to a very special emergency bonus episode of Allegedly Astrology. Dana, what are we covering on this episode?
Today we are talking about Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn's breakup.
I mean, I have to say I was surprised. What were you guys surprised?
No. After looking at the astrology, no.
Ooh, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what it is. But after 6 years of dating, which is a long time in the celebrity world, after some Grammys, a lot of bangers about their romance, they had music collaborations, lots of engagement rumors, Taylor Swift and Joe Alwyn have broken up. This is not the first time we've talked about Taylor's dating history, so if you're interested in hearing more, you can sign up for our Patreon and listen to our episode about her and Jake Gyllenhaal. It's a good one. We'll tell you all about the scarf. It's worth it. Okay, but back to her and Joe. Let's check out the astrology.
So Taylor and Joe have been private about their relationship, which normally is not Taylor's thing. Like, her whole career is based off writing songs about all of the juicy details of her previous romances. But this time it was different. The pair were first linked together in May 2017, but there were rumors that they were reportedly dating for months.
Yes. And people speculate that they likely met at the Met Gala in 2016, and this theory stems from Taylor's song, Dress. And in the song Dress, the lyrics say, "Flashback to when you met me, your buzz cut and my hair bleached." Because, spoiler alert, at the Met Gala, Taylor had bleached blonde hair and Joe had a buzz cut.
I love that song, and when you read it, I heard it in the way she sings it. Okay, so we're going to say they met at the Met Gala. What was going on that day, Dana?
That was May 2nd, 2016. And on that day, Mars was retrograde in Sagittarius. And so Mars retrogrades can be super horny. And this is because Mars appears closer to Earth. Mars is the planet of sex. Sagittarius is like such a little party monster. And Sagittarius is a pretty significant sign for both of them. It's Taylor's sun sign, and it squares Joe's sun in Pisces, and it's opposite his natal Mars in Gemini. So an opposition is an aspect of relationship. So during your Mars opposition, you might be more likely to find someone you want to bone. And when Mars is squaring your sun, you're like inspired to act. So maybe he's usually more reserved and he felt, compelled to act. Personally, for Taylor, she was in a third house Jupiter Pisces year, and the moon, south node, and Neptune were in Pisces. So whenever you're in a year, that sign will be especially active. And so when planets are transiting that sign, that's going to really highlight stuff for you.
Wait, Dana, didn't you say on a recent episode that you've noticed a lot of relationships starting and ending during third house years?
I think I did say that, actually, yeah.
And that was surprising to you, right? Because third house doesn't immediately scream relationships.
It's beginnings and endings. It doesn't. It's a cadent house, so that means it's transiting to the next house, and the fourth house is the house of endings, but it's specifically for third. So yeah, that is. Can
you remind us what the third house generally is about?
It's about your immediate surroundings. It could be about your siblings, which I feel like millennials maybe marry people they get along with, not like siblings, but it's not sort of like
that's true.
Meeting people in the same, you're likely to be roommates with your partner before you're likely to be their, husband or wife. There's a little bit of that vibe. And third house is roommate. So that's interesting. Hadn't put that together before. Third house is also skills, anything you're good at. And so it could really speak to those sorts of things. Also your grocery store, your neighbors, sort of what you're moving around, every day in your life. The websites you visit every day, if you have one website you go to. Just sort of how you translate the world around you to yourself. So yeah, it's not necessarily specifically to relationships, although except for siblings. She's in this third house here. Pisces is her active sign. Pisces is a sign that really dissolves sort of boundaries. So her maybe being, she might have had her guard down a little bit in a way that's, positive for her because she did have to be so guarded, right?
Yeah, I think this was, Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong. Also, I will defer to Sarah a lot in this episode because she is our resident Swiftie. But Sarah, isn't this post-Reputation when she was kind of keeping a lower profile-ish? She might have not been super on the prowl per se? I don't know.
This could have been right before it came out because Reputation came out in 2017.
Oh,
so
okay.
Reputation's never been worse, so you must like me for me.
Delicate. Banger.
There we go. Anyway, continue, Dana.
So the moon was here, so it's activating her third house. And so I've noticed that fast planet, the moon, Venus, the sun, Mercury, especially the moon is 2 days in one sign. that could be like a heightened time for you, you know, like a specific turning point. So I definitely do think that they probably, got together at this event. The South Node is also there, maybe draining sort of like her past ways. It's also just like there's a point of gravity. So the South Node can be something that like you don't usually look at. Now it's like, begging for attention. There's a lot of ways you can interpret the South Node or either node. I think the best general way across all traditions is just that it's very significant. And then Neptune's there too, which is also the dissolution. It's also glamour. It's also like, like what you need to like love in a way. It's sort of like this altruism. And it's also sort of like being drunk. So, drunk in love. Very
Met Gala-y.
Yeah, for sure. And then her natal Jupiter, so Jupiter is her Time Lord, is in Cancer in her 7th house, conjunct her descendant with her moon, which rules that planet. So that's major. So your Time Lord is also going to be activated in your chart. And so since Jupiter rules Pisces, Jupiter is her Time Lord for this year, and it's conjunct her natal descendant. So this year was going to be about major relationships for her either way.
So 7th house, that's the major relationship house.
If she was my client, I would say you're probably doing major relationships. If not, you're signing a major contract. And she probably did both. She probably signs major contracts like all the time.
Every day.
Yeah. Taylor, this might be a major contract for you. Also, Venus was conjunct her IC in the 5th house in Taurus. So the 5th house is all about new romance. It's about like that fun feeling. It's about risk, like it's about children, 'cause it's about sex. And it's just like having fun, leisure, sort of like, meeting at a party is very 5th house. And Venus is, of course, the planet of love. And in Taurus, it's like indulging. And Pluto was in her 1st house in Capricorn. So this is just sort of like she's really undergoing this major change. And it's at 17 degrees. So it's halfway through its tour of Capricorn. So it's like she's been in it. But it's still significant. And it's close to her natal Saturn, which is at 13 degrees. Hey, me too, Tay. And I think you too, Elise. Also, her progress moon was in Gemini, opposite her natal sun. And this is very relationship-y. Whenever the progress moon is transiting by house, by sign, and whatever natal planets it's aspecting, you'll get like a key of, or like a taste of like what, this like sort of 2-year chapter of your life is about. So for her in Gemini, it's in her 6th house. So this is about health. I think this is probably around the time she started like eating healthier and started working out. But yeah, so her progress moon's opposite her natal sun. The moon is like, the night. It's the moon and the sun are the two lights. So when they oppose each other, when the progress moon opposes your natal sun, it's likely to be a time when you're experiencing major relationship changes, either beginnings, endings, having to see yourself in a new light, and maybe seeing yourself through someone else's eyes. And it's really nice if that person loves you.
Cute. So, the announcement that they're together comes out. And after that, they vacation together. They make it IG official. He goes to her shows. She would go to his movie premieres. But overall, like, they really didn't go out in public that much. So they kept it low key.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like I found out they were dating like a year ago.
Really?
Yeah. Taylor said that keeping her relationship private gave her separation between her personal and professional life, which wasn't something that she had been used to doing in her previous relationships, which kudos to her for trying a new approach this time around. They always dodged questions about their relationships in interviews, but sources close to them said that they were really happy. So Dana, what's their biwheel like?
I must know.
I know, I need to know.
Okay, Taylor was born December 13th, 1989 at 8:36 a.m. in Reading, Pennsylvania, according to Astro Theme, and that is also listed on Astro Databank. Joe was born February 21st, 1991 in London. We don't know what time. So we don't have his rising, but Taylor is a Sagittarius sun, obviously, a Cancer moon, obviously, and a Capricorn rising, likely. And Joe is a Pisces sun.
Capricorn rising.
And either a Taurus moon or a Gemini moon. I feel like he's probably a Taurus moon because he seems so...
boring.
He just seems so, like, quiet. He's, like, not really loud and out and about. So the first thing I saw when I looked at this chart is that his Saturn in Aquarius is exactly conjunct her natal Venus, the planet of love. Saturn's the planet of commitment. Venus is the planet of love. So this is also maybe like something, this could also be what breaks a relationship or what makes it never get off the ground. But Saturn rules Aquarius. And so Venus isn't necessarily strong in Aquarius. So it's not weak though either. It has what's called triplicity since it's an air sign. And
so wait, Taylor has Venus in Aquarius?
Yes.
Interesting. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Does Venus like being in Aquarius? No, right?
It doesn't hate it.
But it's not like exalted.
No, it's not. But Saturn is super strong in Aquarius. So, and Saturn is a planet of commitment. In Aquarius, this is sort of like the freedom, these are like, they get to sort of like be the extremes like of these placements, like where like they do get to like travel the world and like trust each other, right? Like there's probably this sort of like freedom which Taylor needs, you know, with her Venus in Aquarius, with her sun in Sagittarius, which is probably also why she writes about relationships so much, because it's like she's not as clingy, I would think, as she seems. I mean, except for, you know, to the Kennedys and Jake Gyllenhaal. In a few incidents, like we all are. So I think this is just like a really, so in summary, his Saturn conjuncture natal Venus in Aquarius is about stability, understanding, and having fun. Aquarius being an air sign, it's all about intellectuality, so understanding each other, talking is really great. Like, I just literally like can imagine them like talking and her like having that like, you know, happy smile. That like such a Sag smile. So his north node is in her first house and his south node's in her seventh house. So his north node's in Capricorn, his south node's in Cancer. When someone has their nodes in your first and seventh house, that's going to be, there's familiarity there, there's gravity. There's sort of like this pull to each other. The nodes are about gravity, and your first house is all about you. Your seventh house is about the partner. This is sort of like a major sort of intrigue. They also both have Mercury in the sign of each other's north nodes. So Taylor's Mercury is in Capricorn, and his north node's in Capricorn, and Joe's Mercury is in Aquarius, and her north node's in Aquarius. So once again, this is sort of like that gravity. Mercury is a sign of communication. So I think they're also they're both Saturn ruled signs. So there's like, you know, this desire to push each other to grow, and like they're able to also be like interested in each other's, you know, like career progressions, like, you know, active improvement.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because they did write music together. And, you know, I think that's something that, you know, not all couples want to be involved in their partner's sort of like career and stuff.
Do you and Dan write music together?
I can't say that we do.
Someday. They also both have their suns ruled by Jupiter and in mutable signs. So Taylor's sun is in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter, and Joe's sun is in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter. These are mutable signs. Jupiter's a planet of optimism. Its mutable signs are changeable. So they're able to sort of move together. Even though they square each other, they're probably like excited to be together. Jupiter is very like happy. And so it's sort of like, you know, breeding goodwill and cheer and good luck. Also, his Venus in Pisces trines her natal Mars in Scorpio. And that's just hot. Especially in water signs, there's sort of this like depth for that. And so her Mars is in Scorpio, it's in its domicile, and his Venus is exalted in Pisces. So they're also both these like dignified planets. And there's just like this watery depth. So they also, yeah, that's also very good for writing music, because her Mars is able to really get to the heart of the matter, and his Venus can sort of soften whatever that like Mars and Scorpio is like, I'm going to fucking tell everyone what you did to me.
So he softens that part of her. That's cute.
I wish we knew his birth time. That would make this spicier. But I do think, like, obviously his Saturn conjunct her Venus makes a lot of sense, because that's, you know, commitment. They were together for 6 years. That's like a long time. And then also, if he does have the moon in Taurus, it's in her fifth house, which is hot, fun.
And if it's in Gemini, then it's opposite her sun, which creates that sort of allure.
Yeah, a nice little tension, but a nice tension. A pull, if you will.
Especially in Gemini and Sagittarius, which is like clown time. So it's not.
But do you guys think, like, looking at this chart, do you see just like fireworks, bang, bang, long-lasting relationship?
I mean, I would really have to see his rising to know.
Right. Not that much jumps
I don't
out.
think they have like that much going on. I mean, they have stuff, but for someone who was like, this is the man that I will write several albums about, dedicate songs to, I just feel like it's not. I've just been down a lot of synastry rabbit holes lately, so I just feel like they don't have any of the things that are like, holy shit, like very common things. Besides, I would say Saturn and conjunct Venus is nice.
Yeah, Saturn gets a lot of flack, maybe because we're from such a Capricorn, like Saturnian generation. But I feel like if you don't have Saturn in synastry, like, where's your foundation?
Yeah, you need like commitment.
Yeah.
But also the nodes is nice. Like Mercury's like not that cool of a planet to have on a node, but
I think it's great. Talking, I'm a Gemini,
you
so of
love
course I think it's great.
talking, yeah.
I'm like, you. Okay. But yeah, they also both have each other. I just realized they also both have Jupiter with each other's south node. So they have nodal synastry on both nodes and with these like major planets. And it's Jupiter and Mercury, which are the two planets that rule the mutable sign. So there's a sort of like ability to maybe change together.
That's true. So as the relationship progressed, they even wrote music together, like I was just talking about. Joe helped Taylor write some songs on folklore and Evermore, like Betty, In Exile, Champagne Problems, Coney Island, Evermore, just like a lot of sad songs.
And didn't he like not put his name on it, but he used like a pen name?
Yeah, it was William Bowery.
And Joe was also the inspiration for some of Taylor's songs, like the previously mentioned song Dress, Delicate, and Gorgeous.
Bangers, bangers, bangers. I love all of those songs. However, fans couldn't help but notice that Joe was not at any of the stops on Taylor's current Eras tour, so the rumors started to swirl, and then eventually news broke that the two had broken up. Sad. So what was going on when the announcement was made, Dana?
RIP. So that was April 8th, 2023. And so this all comes after a 7-month-long tour of Mars in Gemini, including a Mars retrograde in Gemini, which is a sign opposite Sagittarius, and Mars was retrograde in Sagittarius when they got together in April or in May 2016.
Oh, damn.
And I've mentioned in other episodes that 2022 and 2023 would mirror 2016 because it's a significant turning point from that era. Mars retrograding in opposite signs is significant. It's a Jupiter opposition. Jupiter was in Virgo in 2016 and then it was in Pisces in 2022. And it's a Saturn square. So Saturn was in Sagittarius. Okay. Also, Venus was maybe conjunct Joe's moon at this time. It was either close or conjunct his moon. So if he was born at noon, Venus was conjunct his moon on this day, but otherwise it's close. And so Venus crossing your moon, Venus and the moon are these two like receptive planets, these feminine principles. Venus is all about beauty and connection. The moon is about reception, receiving. It's about subjectivity and sort of like the body. So love is on the brain for him in some capacity. Saturn is also conjunct Joe's sun in Pisces, and Neptune is conjunct his Venus in Pisces. So I think she dumped him, or at least that if he dumped her, then he's very devastated by it, but also who thinks that he dumped her? Saturn crossing the sun is a time when you can feel depressed. Saturn's a planet of depression. The sun is how you shine. So this could be, in many ways, I like Saturn aspecting my sun, but I think a lot of people might. But it's a time to get serious. For him, it's dulling his light. And Neptune on his Venus is making things like very confusing. This is like confusing love. It could be like not really being able to see the future, in certain ways. Or it's different, right? His future has suddenly changed. So Joe also completed his 7-month Mars return. So he has Mars at 10 degrees Gemini, and Mars covered the planet, or Mars was retrograde. It stationed retrograde at 25 degrees Gemini, and it stationed direct at 8 degrees Gemini. So he had 3 Mars returns, much like Elise. Actually, I think your Mars are conjunct. Cute.
Oh.
Sexually charged, honestly.
Me and Joe Alwyn. He does kind of have Danton vibes.
They have similar looks, for sure.
That's true. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys who love their grandparents.
Yeah. So this is a major thing for Joe. Like whenever you're having like this major, long Mars return. Also, he was born after a Mars return. And so I have this theory. It's not that crazy of a theory, but the planets, if you were like born near a major retrograde, which Mars is the least common retrograde than Venus. So either of those two, especially like if maybe any of those retrogrades will really be turning points for you, but especially if it's in that sign. So he was born right after a Mars retrograde from Gemini into Taurus. So his Mars, he was born during a year where Mars was retrograde in Gemini. It's sort of like mirroring that. So he's at a major turning point in his life. And Mars squares his natal sun and his Venus. So they're sort of like bringing that tension in with Saturn too, right?
People, again, Mars return, it just either destroyed you or turned you into like the belle of the ball. There was no in between.
Also, Mars like at the time of the breakup, April 8th. So Mars had ingressed to Cancer. And so it's in her 7th house conjunct her natal moon and descendant. And her moon rules that house. So this is whenever Mars is the planet of severing, the 7th house is the planet of partnerships. Mars transiting the 7th can be hot sex. It can also be breaking up.
Snipping the invisible string. That's a nod to one of her songs about that.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
RIP.
Yep. And she removed it from her set list in Dallas, and everyone was being like, oh my God, what do you think this could mean? Now we
I was
If I
really
were her, I
bummed.
would just
I
do
wanted to
crazy
hear that
shit
song.
all the time just to have people talk about it because her fans are like the QAnon of like fandom.
They are.
It is
truly.
true.
Like drawing maps to like the underground.
They're drawing maps on TikTok to figure out what the secret songs at each concert are going to be. I'm
They're
not
like,
even
she
kidding.
wore a top with off the shoulders, and so did Princess Diana when she like told everyone that she hated Charles. Okay, also, yeah, so this was after a full moon in Libra. And so full moons in Libra are about relationships. Libra is a sign of relationships. And the full moon in Libra can be a time when you're focusing on your relationships. And Libra is Taylor's perfected house for this year. It's her perfected sign. It's also her 10th house, the house of publicity, relationship. Well, your public self, like anything. If you're getting publicity, check the 10th house or the 11th. And by this time, the moon had entered Scorpio, which is the house of like severing. Or Scorpio's more like, all right, the reality of the relationship. And then Pluto also entered Aquarius on March 23rd. And Pluto is the planet of major change and transformation. And like also literally like breaking. Like I always think of it as like breaking a bone and then having to re-break it to heal it, which is dark and happened to me once. So I probably internalized that. But yeah, also Taylor's Venus is at 1 degree Aquarius. So she's getting this like Pluto on her Venus. Venus is the planet of love. She's also the planet of art. And she's like the most powerful woman alive. I don't know. The most powerful celebrity, at least.
A lot of people have a theory
Female
that
celebrity.
she's bi, which I think is very also Venus and Aquarius.
Oh, yeah. Maybe. Oh, for sure. Everyone.
If you're curious about learning more, check out the subreddit thread called Gaylore.
Yes, It is a rabbit hole.
It's a rabbit
Cool.
hole, so prepare
I will
yourself.
check that out. Also, so yeah, Venus is her time lord since Venus rules Libra and Libra is her sign of the year. So that means that this planet is activated and transits to and from Venus are extra sensitive and weighted more heavily in terms of like meaning and prediction. So when astrologers who use perfections are, making predictions, we consider that a lot. So this is also, Venus, again, being the planet of love, like she's going through major transformations in her love relationships. And also her art might be really different this year, which is something different, but cool to look forward to. Venus is also in Taurus at this time, and it's in domicile opposite her natal Mars, which is in domicile in Scorpio. So she's getting this sort of like Venus opposite Mars. It's very much war. It's also, these are in these signs that are so much about commitment, Venus and Scorpio. And so when something's about commitment, it's also about, am I no longer committed to this? And so I think that came up. But then I also did their Davison chart, which takes the exact middle date and exact middle location for them, it's like probably in the ocean for their birth times and birth locations. And so since we don't have the rising, there's not much we can go off. But something that was hugely significant is that the North Node is exactly conjunct their Davison Mars in Taurus. And so Mars is definitely at 4 degrees Taurus in their Davison chart. And the North Node, which will only be at 4 degrees Taurus every 19 years, is crossing their natal Mars. And so Mars, again, being the planet of severing.
Right now it's crossing it?
Yeah.
Wow.
Their Mars is at 4 degrees Taurus in their Davison chart. The North Node is at 4 degrees Taurus in, the current transits. So that's pretty big.
Having like Jupiter in the first house in a Davidson chart is really nice because it's like, we love being together.
Yeah. Also, so their Davison moon is likely in Gemini. I think it's definitely in Gemini. And so Mars crossing that would, would be hard, especially the moon and Mars are not friendly
not
aspects.
buds.
But Mars is hard on the moon. The moon is all about emotion. And so if you just like take a lot of, especially in Gemini, it's sort of like being like really like changing a lot. So it's like, what's the word? Fickle. And then again, that moon ruling their sun and Jupiter, it's going to be like, all right, this is sort of just changing the goals of our relationship. Like their goals probably changed either together or separately. And maybe once Mars entered Cancer to hit exactly where they're, because since that Cancer, that probably, along with the North Node hitting their Mars, is sort of like this, last dance. I don't know, last hurrah.
Yeah. I mean, the reason for their breakup isn't clear. Like outlets reported that they grew apart and they want to remain friends. I checked today and there was like a little bit more. Like obviously this was a very like private relationship. Maybe we'll learn more in upcoming music. But essentially the one thing that I was reading was like when they got together, it was basically around the time of like Reputation when she was like more of a homebody, like trying to like hide from everyone. And then that was almost like followed by the pandemic, which they were like just kind of in this bubble for 2 years. And he never really experienced her like being her Sag sun self, like being out, like going to do things like writing music, going to concerts, like being super, super in the public eye again. So I think like it just became very clear that the lifestyles they wanted and their realities like were very different. So
Yeah. Bummer for them, but it does seem pretty amicable, at least, you know, from what we're from initial reports. I mean, no breakup is fully 100% amicable, but I could see these two having something a little bit more chill, especially with how long they lasted. I don't think this was like one giant blowout like fight and then they were done. I think this was definitely like a slow burn type of thing, and
a death by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Oh, is that a Taylor reference too?
Another Taylor reference. There was no great war. Haha, that's another one. Oh, I do have one thing to add that I honestly think about way too much. It was a Demois blind, but somebody said that Taylor, when she like gives guys head, she holds their hand, and I think about this like way too often.
Are you kidding me?
Interesting.
Which to me is I believe it's true because I could like see her doing it or imagine it happening.
Yeah,
think about that.
Let's do a quick Swiftie predict. So, do you think Taylor is going to jump back into a relationship anytime soon? Do you think she's going to be like all me? You know, I feel like she might be kind of ready to hit the scene again if this was more of a slow burn relationship ending. What do you think? Anything in her chart that suggests any whirlwind romances?
Well, so the eclipses is where I'm looking. And so the North Node is still in Taurus in her house of like fun and romance. So it makes sense that relationships are ending. It's going to enter her 10th and 4th, which can definitely be about major beginnings and major endings in really public relationships, perhaps. Although the North Node will be in Aries in her 4th house. So that could be the South Node in Libra could maybe be her going back to someone.
What?
Or like even just hooking up with, you know, someone from the past. I don't know. That would be interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting. Well, I like this for her. I'm kind of ready for like a more public T-Swift relationship.
Wait, also Venus will retrograde in her 8th house. That could be interesting. Maybe she would have a secret relationship. Maybe she would have a secret pansexual relationship.
Ooh.
I don't know. Just because Venus, if she is more sexually fluid, then she's like
the Gaylor
talked about.
Conspiracy
That's what it's called.
theorists will love it.
I feel like everyone's like much more open with being sexually fluid these days. So
yeah,
maybe she'll have a chance.
Especially when you take
her
ecstasy.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we'll have to stay tuned for what's next for Taylor. Sad this era of her relationship is over, but we're excited for more. We're excited for a breakup album. All right. Well, with that, I'm Elise.
I'm Dana.
And I'm Sarah.
And this has been a special bonus episode of Allegedly Astrology.
Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Maybe they will.
I knew you were trouble when you walked in.
Yeah, what's your favorite album?
Me now.
Mine's Red.
Ooh, I think Red is one of my favorites. Yeah, I also love 1989.
I don't know her albums, I just know her songs.
I Knew You Were Trouble's on Red.
Yeah, that was when she first started going like poppier.
I like that song Style. Where's that song from?
1989.
Is that the one that's like...
So far, those are my two faves.
I also like the one Bad Blood is so good.
That was
on
on
Reputation.
Now we got Bad Blood. Hey!
Yeah, that was a good one.